Imagine this. You are standing in the middle of a vast valley, but it is not a lush valley filled with green grass or winding rivers of crystal clear water. No, this is a barren wasteland, so desolate that not even a single blade of grass dares to grow. Before your eyes lies a scene that would make anyone shudder. Thousands upon thousands of bleached white bones scatter across the cracked earth. Hollow skulls, broken rib cages, and heaps of bones stretching endlessly toward the horizon. No birds sing here. Not even the faintest whisper of wind passes through. There's only a heavy, suffocating silence, so deep that you can almost hear the pounding of your own heartbeat. Then, in that eerie stillness, a sound begins to rise. At first, it is faint, like a distant rustle beneath the ground. But quickly, it grows louder, echoing across the valley, becoming a chilling clatter. The bones begin to shake. One by one, they rattle and roll, snapping into place, joint to joint, until human skeletons take form before your very eyes. And before you can catch your breath, something even more astonishing happens. Sinews stretch across them, muscles grow, and skin wraps around the bodies. In moments, what was once a field of lifeless bones is transformed into a valley filled with human forms. Yet they lie motionless, as though in a deep sleep. Suddenly, a mighty wind sweeps in from the four corners of the earth. Breath rushes into the bodies. Chests rise. Eyes snap open. And then, in unison, thousands of people inhale their very first breath. They rise to their feet. The silence shatters as the entire valley trembles with the roar of a mighty army, standing strong, alive, fierce, and filled with power. At first glance, you might think this sounds like a scene from a horror movie or some epic science fiction film, perhaps a Hollywood masterpiece with stunning special effects. But no, what you have just envisioned is not fiction at all. It is a prophetic vision, recorded in the Bible thousands of years ago, in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37. And here's the most incredible part. This vision was not only for the people of Israel in the past. It carries a profound message for us today. Because every one of us, at some point in life, has faced our own valley of dry bones, a season of despair, hopelessness, loss, or a time when faith felt empty and life seemed to have no way forward. This story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest places, in the most lifeless and hopeless situations, there is one who can breathe life again, restoring what was broken and reviving what was thought forever lost. And that is the truth we are about to uncover together in today's journey. The one who witnessed this vision was the prophet Ezekiel. He was not in his homeland at that time, but living in exile far away in a foreign land. His people, the nation of Israel, had been defeated in battle, dragged away as captives to Babylon. The temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. Families were torn apart. Faith was shaken. For many, it felt as if everything had collapsed. Some may have whispered in despair, "It's over. God has abandoned us. There is no hope left." It was in this dark and hopeless moment that God chose Ezekiel to carry a very special message. But instead of just giving him words, God brought him into a vision, an image so vivid and unforgettable that it would echo through time. And in the middle of a valley filled with dry bones, the story began. Picture this. Ezekiel standing in the middle of that valley. All around him lay dry, brittle bones, bleached white under the scorching sun. There was not the faintest trace of life. It was nothing but the remains of a long-forgotten battle. Then, suddenly, the voice of God broke the silence. "Son of man, can these bones live?" That question wasn't just simple curiosity. It was a challenge, an invitation to think beyond what the human mind could grasp. From a human perspective, the answer was obvious. No. Bones is dry, flesh long decayed, life gone for ages, resurrection was impossible. But Ezekiel did not rush to say no. Instead, with humility and trust, he replied, "Sovereign Lord, only you know." That response carried both reverence and faith. It was as if Ezekiel was saying, "If it depends on man, then no. This is hopeless. But if it depends on you, Lord, then nothing is impossible." And then came the strange command. God told Ezekiel, "Prophesy to these bones. Speak to them and say, 'Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord.'" Now pause for a moment and imagine that scene. A lone man standing in a desolate valley, raising his voice to preach to piles of lifeless bones. To anyone watching from the outside, it must have looked absurd, like madness. But Ezekiel didn't argue. He didn't hesitate. He simply obeyed. And that's when the impossible began to unfold. First, there was a sound, a faint rattling, like the clatter of stones rolling. The bones began to move, twitching and sliding across the ground. They found one another, bone to bone, locking back into place, forming skeletons. Then sinew stretched across them, muscles wrapped around them, and finally, skin covered them. What once was a valley of scattered remains now became filled with thousands upon thousands of complete human forms. But there was still something missing. They were perfectly formed bodies, yet motionless, lie on the ground. They looked like humans, but without breath, without life. God was showing Ezekiel, and through the people of Israel, a profound truth. Human effort can rebuild structures, restore appearances, even make something look whole again. But without the Spirit of God, there is no real life. And so God spoke again, prophesied to the breath, called to four winds, and say, "Come, breath, from the four corners of the earth, breathe into these slain, that they may live." Ezekiel obeyed once more. He lifted his voice, calling to breath, summoning the winds. And suddenly life surged into them. Breath entered their lungs. Chests rose and fell. One by one they began to stand. Not just a few, but an entire army, vast and mighty, filling the valley where death once ruled. This was no ordinary vision. It was a message, a declaration. God was telling his people, "You think you are finished. You think your hope is gone. But I am the God who raises the dead. I am the one who breathes life into what is lifeless. And I will bring you back. I will restore you." And then Ezekiel obeyed once more. He lifted his voice and spoke the words God had commanded, calling the winds from the four corners of the earth. Suddenly, a mighty breath swept through the valley, rushing like a storm. That breath filled the bodies that only moments before were lifeless. Chests rose, eyes opened, and in one thunderous moment, the entire valley shook as thousands upon thousands drew in a deep, powerful breath and stood to their feet. What had once been nothing but dry, scattered bones was now transformed into a vast, living, breathing army, strong, vibrant, and full of life. And then came the voice of God declaring, "Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel." They say, "Our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are cut off. But I will open their graves. I will bring them back to their land, and I will put my spirit within them, and they will live again." This was not just a story for Israel 2,500 years ago. It is also a message for us here today, because just like Israel, we too face valleys of dry bones. We too know what it feels like to lose hope, to see dreams shattered, to feel as though life has crumbled beyond repair. Maybe your valley is filled with disappointment, promises that were broken, opportunities that slipped away. Maybe your valley is filled with grief, the pain of losing someone you love, or the silence of prayers that seem unanswered.